Welcome to Tracing Your Family Roots. My name is Arlene Sachs, and this is Stephen Snell. Welcome, Stephen. Stephen's my guest today, and he's going to talk about planning a family reunion. And really, you're going to talk more about the pre-planning. So how did you decide to do this?
Well, I had conducted a family reunion on the other side of my family for the Greenlaws, and I had done it all by myself, and which is something that one should never ever even attempt to do, as I'm sure you well know. And my older brother, who had attended the Greenlaw reunion, wanted me to conduct a similar reunion for the Snell side of the family.
You did it once, you could do it again.
Exactly, and I said, no way. And I thought about it, and I thought, well, what I will do is a planning and organizing event beforehand, so that we could then share the load, and that was really the way to go.
So we're really going to talk now about how you got what your organization plan is. So what's the first thing that you did, or what did you do?
Well, the first thing I did was kind of map it out in my head as to a one-day or one-afternoon kind of event, and then I set about trying to figure out how I was going to get people there, how I would contact people. So I simply got onto the internet and got on my search engine for an address thing like Super Pages, and started sending out flyers to people. And
you just picked up every Snell?
Picked up Snells in New England.
Just in New England?
Just in New England. I think I sent a few to Florida, a few to California, a few to Texas, but people weren't going to come that far for a planning and organizing event. But you hit a couple of hundred Snells in New England, and it's amazing how networking, the word filters out throughout the family.
Wonderful.
So we ended up getting about 20 people at our hotel location in Taunton, Massachusetts, which is down near the Cape, and it's pretty good to get that many people together on a beautiful Saturday in July when people want to be out sailing and so forth.
So how many did you do? That was one afternoon for a few hours? Or?
We started at 12 noon and went through till 5 o'clock. We started out with a luncheon from 12 to 1:30 where everybody got to know each other and introduced each other, and sort of talked a little bit about what we were going to do. And then after lunch, we went to another room that we had set up for a meeting, and we set about planning the event.
And which people are going to be invited? Every Snell, or those that you know for sure are relatives? Or?
Well, we had some discussion about that, and the ancestor that we're all descended from was Thomas Snell, who came to America, we think, in 1639 from England to Salem, Massachusetts. And there was some discussion about should it be limited just to descendants of Thomas Snell. And we decided that it would be primarily for the descendants of Thomas Snell, but any Snell would be welcome to attend, because you never know, they might indeed be related.
Once they do enough genealogy.
And there are other Snell branches, and eventually I think all of these Snells go back to the same Snell.
Maybe Thomas's
antecedents.
Yeah. So you had to set up committees?
Yes, we went through a whole facilitation process, and we set up basically 4 committees. One was a reunion planning committee to handle the mechanics of it, the hotel arrangements and that kind of thing. We also set up a very important research or family history committee, which will be a repository for all of the genealogical information that everyone has, to try to collect it, pull it together, and try to make sense out of it.
Now they're going to send it all before the
Yes, before the reunion. Our reunion won't be till 2009.
Because they've got a while.
So we've got a while to pull all of that data together. The third committee was a DNA committee, of which I'm the chair. And then there was a 4th committee to assemble addresses and handle publicity, which would be a big job.
And are they also handling the registration then? Or?
That will be handled by the reunion committee, but I'm sure we'll have plenty of volunteers to handle some of the mechanics, such as handing out registration and or registering people and handing out badges and information packets and all of that kind of thing.
Now, I think you said your coordinator?
That's a funny story. I participated as a result of being on this program as a volunteer behind the camera. I was here when you interviewed Bennett Greenspan about the Family DNA Project. Well, I was fascinated by it, and I participated. I sent my swab in, participated, and found out that I was a Snell back about 2 or 3 generations. And then out of the blue, I heard from somebody in Florida who has done some research on the Snell family, and he and I are both descended from sons of the original settler, Thomas Snell. So that establishes my line back to our most common ancestor, which is Thomas Snell. And he ended up being very interested and decided to become a co-chair of this with me. But it gets confusing because his name is also Stephen Snell, spelled the same way. And if you think that isn't confusing.
Yeah, well, you have to specify somehow, either Virginia or Florida. Or
well, we've taken to spelling our first names differently, but that doesn't seem to have worked.
Still sounds the same. So how you're getting to people just by word of mouth and the original mailings? Or?
Well, the original mailings went out to every Snell I could find in New England, of which there were, I don't know, I found about 300, I think. But it is amazing how families network. They'll get something in the mail and they'll call Aunt Susie or Aunt Sally or Uncle Joe or Cousin Beth or something, and the word just filters out through the whole family. So I ended up hearing from a lot of people whose last name was not Snell. The other way to reach people I found was through press releases. I find if a local paper receives a professionally prepared press release, they will use it word for word. And it's these local papers that I send them to, and people really read those at the local level, and a lot of information got out that way.
Well, I think if you see a name that you know popping out, it pops out at you. If you're reading your local paper, even if you're scanning it, hey, what's my name doing there?
Right.
So what is this 5-generation thing that you've set
yes.
up?
When we set up our research or our family history committee, there was a lot of talk about the Mayflower Society 5-generation project. The Mayflower Society has a project to professionally research the first 5 generations of Mayflower, the Mayflower passengers, all the passengers that they know about. And the Family Research Committee for the Snell family decided they want to do something similar, where they do professional research on the first 5 generations of the Snell family, starting with Thomas Snell on down to the next 5 generations.
That's often the hardest part. So somebody living now can get back to that point, then they'll know for sure that they fit in.
Exactly. And so now everybody's submitting all of their data to the Family Research Committee, and it's a great relief for me when people contact me with their information. I can just move it right on to the Family Research Committee so that I have the time to focus on research on my line.
Now, you have a couple of books there. Did you use those?
Yes, one book in particular that I'd like to bring your attention to is something called Great Meetings, Great Results by D. Kelsey and Pam Plumb. And Pamela Plumb is the former mayor of Portland, Maine. And needless to say, she had lots of meetings. And she worked with Dee to come up with this marvelous book that I find indispensable for a good meeting. And in particular, of course, we all find different things that appeal to us in books. And one thing that really educated me in this book was the role of a facilitator. It really takes apart the role of the facilitator. And that's what you're doing. That's really what you started out doing. And that's what I started out doing. And so this was a mainstay of our planning and organizing meeting. And from this, we developed a whole sort of method for how we were going to conduct this meeting. We had a U-shaped table with a flip chart, and we had a PowerPoint presentation we went through all of the things that you need to talk to people about, saying the rules, basically the rules. Nobody speaks while somebody else is speaking, and nobody monopolizes the conversation, and no idea is too crazy to bring up. And we just went through with all these flip charts, and the other Steve Snell is a professional meeting planner, a professional facilitator, I mean. And so he was acted as our facilitator. And when we got done, we had all these charts up on the walls of the hotel room, meeting room. And then afterwards, we took that all, pulled it all together, and sent the notes out to everyone.
Well, that sounds like you're really terrifically well organized. I remember when you had your first reunion, you said you had trouble with teenagers, or you didn't know what to do with them. You've gotten around it this time.
Yeah, we didn't. It's very hard, I found at the Greenlaw reunion, to develop activities for kids, because there's such a range of interests between even a 10-year-old and a 14-year-old, or an 8-year-old, and it's very hard to develop a whole range of activities for all those different interests, because a 15-year-old doesn't want to sit in a room with a 10-year-old. And I brought that up. However, this meeting, this Snell family reunion, is set for September 2009, so it'll be going on after school starts. So I don't think that we'll have a lot of children. And they were not that oriented towards children. I think they were so overwhelmed at having a family reunion. They really wanted to get the reunion set up. But
you don't think people with children will come? Are you going to tell them?
I think so, and I think they're going to deal with this later. I think they're going to realize that we're going to have some activities for kids.
Because if it's a weekend and you're in New England, you're close enough to come as a family and drive.
I mean, it's a family event.
Yeah.
And we've, for instance, encouraged people to, on their way to the reunion, to perhaps stop at the Pequot Museum in Connecticut. There's of course, the Snells arrived around West Bridgewater around the 1630s or 40s. Thomas Snell ended up being the largest landholder in West Bridgewater. And during King Philip's War, the Snells were there. And Nathaniel Philbrick's book, Mayflower, is a wonderful narrative of this time. Might get my finger out of the way. This time in the history of that part of Massachusetts. And there's a lot of discussion in here about the Pequot Indians. And of course, there's the wonderful Pequot Indian Museum in Connecticut. And then, of course, this Plymouth plantation. So we're trying to develop some pre-reunion and post-reunion activities that families might want to attend.
How many days, what is it going to run, Saturday morning to Sunday evening?
No, it's going to run Thursday evening through Sunday.
Okay, so an extended weekend.
Yes, it's going to be an extended weekend. And we're trying to plan, one idea we'd like to do is have a baked bean supper on Friday night or Saturday night or something with a local historical group, something like that, sort of a community kind of event that would be fun. And we're doing it in the area where Thomas Snell originally settled. There are lots of graveyards there are, with Snells, with some very interesting tombstones. There are lots of buildings associated with the Snells. So we're trying to design a tour that would show people all of these historical sites that are related to the Snell family.
Does anybody still own any of the original land?
Yes, as a matter of fact. One of our committee members, planning committee members, is a Snell and owns an 18th century Snell home, which I think he's going to be putting on the market. And he's very concerned about it. But yes, there are a few pieces of property that's still owned by Snells.
Okay. What about some of the other things you said? You had some pictures and stuff to.
Yes. For instance, it was interesting after our.
What was this?
Oh, this. Here I'm showing you. This is just the Snell family crest, coat of arms, actually. This is the crest.
This was already in the family. This is not something you guys just...
Oh, no, this is something that is on the internet, that is generally accepted as the Snell coat of arms. Yeah. And the crest is this little helmet and feathers above, which make up part of the coat of arms. This is just a flyer that I put together to show people, send out to people to show them what the event was going to be. And then we had, in addition to that, we had a very simple registration form. The simpler the better.
Now, is that going out already if somebody's...
This was for the planning
Oh, that's just for the planning event.
This was for the planning event. The one for the family reunion would be a little bit more complicated because, of course, there'll be a lot more activities. When we, as a result of our planning and organizing, we came up with 4 committees, and each committee was charged with a vision, a charter, and operation and organization with a chart as to who was responsible in the flow of responsibility. Okay. And that was done for each of the 4 committees and sent out to the committees. Now, I'm chair of the DNA committee, so I reorganized mine a little bit and sent it back for approval, and the overall committee approved it. So now I'm free to go ahead to start with a DNA planning process.
Now, what are you going to do with it? I mean, other than tell people to...
Well, I would like to... I'm hoping that we can get Bennett Greenspan as a Friday noon speaker, luncheon speaker. In advance, I've put together a flyer which I will be sending out to Snells, hoping to get them to participate in the DNA project so that we can discuss that and get the results at the reunion. And we can have a workshop on DNA and what it means, twofold. One, to talk about the results and what they mean for those people who have participated, and also spark some interest amongst those that haven't participated, so they will want to participate.
And he can bring his kits along.
Oh, exactly. He brings kits along, I hope. And so we'll have some thorough discussion about the Snell family DNA.
I just think that that whole DNA thing is just... It opens such a... it's absolutely fascinating, and it opens a whole new world of research and learning and
I mean, it was so exciting to find that I really am, from 99.999 chances out of 100, that I am descended from Thomas Snell, that nothing happened along the way. So that's very exciting. No milkmen, no nothing.
Well, you've got the name anyway, so it...
Right. So that was very exciting. I was very apprehensive once I did it, because I thought, if something happened along the way, how will I know who I am? And I became very apprehensive after I'd done it, but then I thought of it as an adventure, and then when the results came back and showed I was Snell, it was almost a letdown.
What else do you have there?
Well, we had, again, for each of our committees, we had the
same kind of handout.
The same kind of handout. For instance, this is the one for the roster committee. They're in charge of the mailing lists and making sure that Snells hear about it, so that we get as many names and addresses as possible.
Now, you said, besides the Stephen Snell that you got in touch with in Florida, you said you had somebody else that from Tennessee or Kentucky, you said, contacted you? Or?
Yes, as a matter of fact, as a result of sending out a press release to all the genealogical organizations throughout New England, somebody who was a member of the Vermont Genealogical Society and lives in Kentucky or Tennessee saw my name and contacted me, and it turns out that he went to William and Mary with me, and we were had talked to each other since we graduated.
He wasn't a Snell.
He wasn't a Snell, but he saw this and he thought, this has got to be the same Steve Snell, and rang me up on the phone, and so we reconnected. So that was kind of fun, kind of interesting.
So much of genealogy and friendship and all of that goes with networking. Everything comes down to the networking, and sometimes it's hard to convince people that they should join a genealogy society or something like that. So I can do everything on the web. But it's the networking that
it was
from other
very
people.
strange for me. Both my parents were only children, so I never had any aunts, any uncles, any cousins. And suddenly to be in this room full of 20 people who were all Snells, 18 of whom their last name were Snell, seemed very, very odd to me, and very exciting, and very. There was a real sense of family, which was very exciting. The other interesting thing is that the person we elected to be chair of our overall reunion planning committee's name is Thomas Snell, who was named after our original ancestor.
So it's interesting, too, that you did keep the name. But does he have, like, Thomas Snell the first? I mean, obviously not the first, the second or third or 10th or something like that?
No, he doesn't, no. But Thomas and John are very, well, Thomas is a family name throughout the Snell family. In my branch, intermarried with the Aldens. So John Alden Snell is a very common name. Alden and John are both common names in my branch of the family, as is Anna, which was the name of John Alden, Priscilla Mullen's granddaughter that married a Snell.
Okay, so we're going back to that.
And then we've finally come up with a draft schedule for our family reunion in 2009, September 17th to 20th, 2009.
It seems hard that you have to plan 3 years ahead, but you need to for a hotel and to get your speakers lined up. And a lot of things, people don't realize that it takes a lot of time. And you probably will get, well, you said a minimum of 150. I can't imagine you'll have less than 500.
I hope so.
I mean, if you have 20 people on your planning committee, you're going to have 100 people right there till they bring their families.
Yep.
So that's going to be really an exciting...
Yeah, I think advanced planning is very important because it gives you, for instance, now I have a real chance, I think, at getting Bennett Greenspan as a speaker because I'm contacting him 3 years in advance. We'll also be able to, I think, get a good deal on the hotel. We can negotiate, gives us plenty of time to negotiate
current prices.
Yes. And it also gives us a chance to vet the schedule to make sure everybody is comfortable with it. And to, if we need local organizations to participate, such as with a supper or something like that, it gives them time to get themselves organized.
And you said something about organizing tours around the area too?
Yes, we're going to, I think on Saturday, we're going to do a tour of, no, Saturday I think we're doing a tour of local sites associated with the Snells in the Bridgewater area. I know one of the days we're doing a tour of Plymouth Plantation. That's the day before on the 16th, the day before the event begins. We're doing a pre-event tour of Plymouth Plantation, the Wampanoag Village, the Mayflower Museum, all in Plymouth.
And then you're going to visit the various houses. And
yes, the houses and the graveyards. There's some fascinating tombstones that associated with the Snells.
How are they different from a regular tombstone?
Well, I guess tombstones just fascinate me. They have the skull on the top and the angel of death, and some of them have the hand pointing upward.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I've never seen anything. I used to think that if there was a skull on it, it meant pirates, but I understand it doesn't. You know, it just means death.
Death, the angel of death. And sometimes it's a skull with wings, and then there are just all sorts of tombstone types.
No, I've never. If I get up in that area, I'll have to look at that again.
What's so sad is a lot of them are deteriorating rather quickly now. And there is a book written in the 19th century of epitaphs from various cemeteries in Bridgewater. So a lot of the writings on the tombstones have been preserved.
Are you doing anything about documenting all of the Snell tombstones?
Yes, we are. Where we've set up a project where the Snell Family Association is going to go through and hopefully document and photograph all of the Snell tombstones.
We've got a couple of minutes left. Why don't you had said you thought when you began this, that you have a Snell family organization first, and it sort of reversed its way?
Yes, that's what fascinated me. I assumed everybody would want to have a Snell Family Association out of which any activities would emanate. And just the reverse happened. And I realize now, after doing being involved in planning 2 reunions, it's the reunion that out of which the family association evolves. People are not ready when they start out to set up a family association.
Why? You don't know them anyway.
Why.
Yes, I can understand that. I can
it's
understand your point.
Now.
Yes.
It's logical to me now.
Once they've met the people and they want to stay in touch, then you can set up your family organization.
That's exactly what happened. They started out in our work session, well, what are we doing? Why are we setting up a family association? I don't know anyone. I don't know what does it do?
Yeah.
And they said, let's focus on the reunion. That's something that we all can relate to and get started with.
Now, do you have like planning sessions or something at the reunion? Like, those that are interested in starting a family association, you'll have them get together and start it and get a newsletter?
Yes,
I guess the newsletter will be your first thing to keep everybody in touch.
Yes, we've reserved Saturday afternoon for an open meeting to have a dialogue and a facilitated session on setting up a family association. And by then people will have had a few days to get to know each other, to get excited, and then I think there will be since we'll be leaving the next day, there will be this sense of, oh, let's form a family association so this can continue. Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm sure will happen.
Well, that sounds like a really good idea.
But out of all of it, I really just can't stress the importance of putting together a planning committee and having some kind of a facilitated planning session a couple of years in advance to determine what it is you want to do for a reunion.
It's not terribly different in a way from putting on a genealogy conference. I mean, you're going to have the same number of people, and you've got to have activities and everything else. Well, thank you very much. We're just about out of time, and it's been
pleasure being here.
It's been very informative. Thank you.
It's amazing how